In the 2018 film Hereditary, one of the main characters is played by Millie Shapiro. No relation to that Shapiro, thank God. Millie has a medical condition called cleidocranial dysostosis, which affects her bone structure, most clearly on her face and shoulders. If you look at Hereditary in isolation, Millie's presence doesn't seem to warrant a longer discussion. She's simply an actress that looks slightly different from her, quote, normative castmates. But then you look at director Ari Aster's follow-up film Midsommar, where there's a character with very distinct facial features as a result of inbreeding. And then you realize that Millie's features might have been deliberately highlighted in Hereditary in an attempt to similarly unnerve the audience. Suddenly, a thought emerges. Horror has a problem with ugliness.
Honey, you got real ugly.
Before I start, I feel there are two things I need to clarify. Firstly, when I talk about ugliness, I'm not saying that Millie Shapiro or anyone like her is ugly. I'm merely trying to describe how popular media often like to portray people with various congenital disabilities, and how their appearance is often deliberately connected to their moral alignment. Perhaps most of all in slasher films, where the heroes are usually normative white teens and adults, while the villains are killers with one or several kinds of physical anomalies or scars. In the case of Hereditary, Millie's character doesn't kill anyone, but she does cut off the head of a bird with a pair of scissors. Secondly, since I don't have any major congenital disabilities myself, I'm not personally attacked by negative representations of this kind, and I don't want to give the impression that my view on the matter is the definitively right one. My goal is only to put a spotlight on this topic, and to inspire various creators of fiction to reconsider what they're doing with these stereotypes, and why they're doing it. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when the practice started, but variations of sideshows have existed for around half a millennia. They're probably more commonly known as freak shows, but I hope I don't need to tell you why that's considered demeaning. In these shows, people got to watch performers with various disabilities and talents standing side by side on a series of stages. The acts could consist of everything from sword eating to someone without arms and legs just standing there for everyone to observe in awe. Famous American showman P.T. Barnum felt that the performers themselves weren't enough though, so he wrote some quite astounding backstories for them, like he did for Joyce Heth, who he claimed was the 160-year-old former nurse of George Washington. It wasn't just about selling the performer's appearance. It was about selling an appealing and exciting narrative.
Before the invention of the sideshow, people with congenital anomalies were actually considered to be evil, or at least the result of sin. During the reign of the Roman Empire, their word for disabled was monstrum. They were literally equated with mythological monsters. This makes it easy to view the sideshow almost like a safe haven for the performers, like a place where they perhaps could feel like they belonged. But even if that were the case, it still sent a very clear message to those who observed the sideshows though. You are the normal ones, and they are the others. They are people who it's completely fine to put on display and basically make up any kind of story you want about. This persists to this day, where we put similar types of performers into horror films and tell the audience that they're evil. Even though none of us, not even our great-great-great-grandparents were alive back then, and even though we don't use the same word, like the Romans, we still seem to view people with congenital anomalies as monsters, or at least as something that's worthy of our fear and discomfort. But why?
In 2011, a study was conducted at Macquarie University in Sydney to see how people would react while interacting with items that had previously been touched by people with and without facial conditions. They were shown videos where these people touched the items, and were then asked to imitate them, without knowing the actual purpose of the study. The study concludes that items that were touched by someone with signs of influenza and someone who had a facial birthmark generated similar signs of disgust among the participants, especially if the item had been used close to the person's face and mouth. What happened was that the participants had a disease-avoidance response. On some primal level, they thought that by being close to the thing the person with the facial birthmark had touched, they could potentially be infected with whatever it was that caused that birthmark. So, do our lizard brain instincts make it okay to treat people with disabilities and features that differ from the norm like they are a threat? Not in the slightest. Let's compare it to motion sickness. The reason why you get motion sickness is because your inner ear sends signals to your brain that doesn't match what you're seeing. You can feel that the surface you're sitting or standing on is moving in some way, but according to your eyes, you're almost completely stationary. In other words, your brain believes that you've been poisoned, so it's trying to tell you that it's probably a good idea to puke. But you know better. You know that there is no poison.
The human body
is a liar sometimes.
Oh boy.
Our brains might tell us that what we're seeing when we see a sizable birthmark is bad and contagious. But in reality, we know that it isn't. Although, it's not particularly strange that we still associate things like this with some sort of danger, since that's the picture that we've been fed by popular media for as long as any of us have been alive. It's not just congenital anomalies and skin conditions that are portrayed this way either. Take Freddy Krueger from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise as an example. Before he became the teen-killing dream demon we know him as in the films, Freddy was just an average Joe. Well, apart from the kidnapping and killing of kids thing. That thing bugged the hell out of the kid's parents though, so when the law couldn't stop him, they took it upon themselves to burn him alive inside of his workshop. When Freddy returned as a dream demon, he had scars all over his body, cementing his iconic look. It's worth noting that makeup artist David Miller supposedly came up with the idea for Freddy's appearance while eating a pepperoni pizza, which I think says a lot about how tactfully the mission was treated. Now, I love the Nightmare on Elm Street films, and I love Freddy Krueger as a villain. I've even met Robert Englund who played Freddy, and he's really nice and my new best friend. Here's a picture. Freddy's burns are a logical part of his character. By clearly showing off his facial scars to his victims, he makes sure that no one will ever forget what the parents of Springwood did to him. It's a taunt towards the people who failed to defeat him. And if there's anything Freddy likes to do, it's to taunt.
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little soul too.
However, considering that this is probably the most famous character with facial burns in movie history, apart from Darth Vader maybe, the single biggest piece of representation people with real facial burns have in horror films or any films, how do you think people respond to that? How are they influenced by it? Perhaps it wouldn't be a very big deal if there was a wide array of famous characters, evil and good, with facial burns in popular media. But that's sadly not how things are. And as a result, people with burn scars are bullied because they look like Freddy Krueger.
Oh my god, she looks like Jason Voorhees.
No, Jason was deformed since like birth. She looks like Freddy Krueger.
Oh look, they're doing it on TV shows too.
Are horror films wholly responsible for the shitty behavior of the people who watch them? No, but if a large group of people are told that something is bad or even dangerous, and there are next to no counter-arguments presented, several of those people will probably agree. The truth is that Freddy could have looked like anything. Not just because he's a dream demon who has changed his appearance multiple times throughout the franchise, but because he's a fictional character who could have been designed literally any other way from the get-go.
Having scars as a signifier for evil isn't exclusive to horror films. The villain in The Lion King is literally named Scar, for God's sake. But I feel that horror films in particular are pushing extra hard to not only tell us that scars and other bodily anomalies equals evil, but that they are ugly, that they deserve to be looked at with disgust, because the characters who have these features, who wear the scars, are clearly written to be disgusting. There's a series of horror films called Wrong Turn, which I can only assume had the working title of Fuck Poor People. The first film, from 2003, is basically the Texas Chainsaw Massacre without the chainsaw. A group of young adults end up in the middle of nowhere and get hunted and killed off by a group of 3 cannibalistic mountain men. They live in a poorly maintained cabin covered in dust and filth, with a fridge full of various body parts. One can almost feel the stench of the place just by looking at it. The cannibals themselves have lost several of their teeth. Their hair is thin, and they seem to have some kind of skin condition. And they only seem to be able to communicate through groans and sadistic laughter. Looking like they do isn't the issue. There are real-life people who, while maybe not looking exactly the same, still have similar features. The problem is that their appearance is supposed to be one among all those other things that make them ugly and disgusting to the audience. In this particular case, congenital disabilities are being used to perpetuate the stereotype that hillbillies, as they're often called, are uneducated, unintelligent, drunk, violent, and have babies with their siblings. In the 2007 sequel to Wrong Turn, Henry Rollins' character acknowledges that this is a bad stereotype.
Hey, bonehead! I grew up 2 counties from here. I never had sex with a pig in my life. You're not promoting stereotypes, are you, son? Outstanding! People in these parts might not take that talk too well. You might want to put a lid on it. Is that all right with you, funny man?
Yes, sir.
But around the 40-minute mark, the film gets right back to grossly portraying it anyway, like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Hills Have Eyes before it. Films like these demonize a particular social class without properly criticizing all the factors that put these people in these living situations in the first place. They mistake a lack of education for a lack of intelligence, and they mistake a lack of money for a lack of humanity. It's not the poverty that's bad, it's the people who are bad for being poor. If you're anything but the
white middle class ideal
or above, you're bad, ugly, and apparently deserving of what's coming to you. But the reason why people can't live up to the ideals and norms of the middle and upper social classes is because the people who totally could help them simply won't. Whether it's because of wealth hoarding, or a complete lack of empathy for the people who don't live in the big cities or fancy neighborhoods. That's right, baby! This video was all about capitalism. Again! God damn it! The filmmakers behind Wrong Turn 2 kind of tried to justify the bad stereotype by writing a backstory where the family turned into cannibals because they were exposed to toxic waste from a nearby paper mill. So that's it then. It's okay because the real villains were the people who caused the toxic waste to spread. Well, that might be the filmmakers' justification for why they made a movie about incestuous killer hillbillies. But they still made a movie about incestuous killer hillbillies. I also think it's worth mentioning that in a lot of cases, it's not even people with bodily anomalies who play these parts. It's just your average normative actors with prosthetics. For them, it's just another job. Another mask, and they can all remove their masks when the job is done. Some people can't though, and personally, I find it hugely unfair that people who don't live with the consequences of negative stereotypes like these get to have such a big influence over the narrative of those who do. What makes all of this so baffling to me is that this stereotype is used in cases where the characters are so clearly evil and disgusting already. Okay, so we're supposed to be uncomfortable by the fact that there's an inbred person in Midsommar. But the villain of the film is literally a cult of Swedish folk dancing white nationalists. Someone will probably argue that since they are white nationalists obsessed with purity, it kind of makes sense that they would have inbreeding. But like, isn't it enough that they're actual fascists? Same goes for Freddy Krueger, really. He's a child murderer. On a list of the most horrible crimes one can commit, it's not exactly far away from the top. Are we really so desensitized to these things that we need to exaggerate them to the point of hurtful exploitation to make them scary?
I don't think that it's possible to make horror completely inoffensive, since one of the main pillars of the genre is to make people uncomfortable. It's about the things we fear, after all. But I also think that it's entirely possible to minimize the damage that horror can have on vulnerable groups of people. Maybe I'm a hypocrite, since I do enjoy some horror that strays away a bit from what would normally be considered politically correct. But then again, I grew up watching horror films that treated people like me as brave and selfless heroes, at least before I came out as non-binary.
It's appealing to be able to detect evil so easily, just by looking at someone. In actuality, it's usually not that simple at all, like Patrick Bateman in American Psycho, Jerry Blake in The Stepfather, or Hannibal Lecter at the end of Silence of the Lambs. Evil is sneaky. It blends in. You might not see it, ever, even if you're staring it right in the face every single day. And if you finally do see it, it might already be too late. In other cases, what is considered to be evil by some may be socially, financially, or politically beneficial to others. So when the first group calls out for help, the other will simply turn its back and pretend like it's raining. That, at least to me, is not only a lot scarier than whatever the Wrong Turn series actually tried to bring to the table, it's also a hell of a lot more true to life. I said before that these negative representations and stereotypes don't attack me personally, but they do affect me. I might not be the target of the downward punches, but I'm someone who's being told who to target, who and what to fear and loathe. After I started writing this script, I realized how casually I would call something or someone ugly, whether it was while watching a film, a TV show, or playing a video game. It started to feel less and less okay to do so. Ugliness is, in part, what you are told and taught not to like. And I don't appreciate being told not to like certain people based on something that's often completely out of their control. People with physical anomalies usually don't choose to look like they do, but we choose to put them on display, to fear and mock them.
It's reasonable to ask where the line of exploitation goes. When is it a completely unrealistic monster, and when is it a negative depiction of someone with physical anomalies? I don't feel like I'm in a position where I could, or even should, answer that. What I do know is this. The thing about horror is that it's not just about facing our fears, but overcoming them. And personally, I think it's about damn time that we overcome our fear of people with congenital disabilities and scars. Because we know better.
You know what sucks? That you can reach an amazing milestone like 4,000 YouTube subscribers and have it be ruined by YouTube's refusal to actually make your videos visible. Several of my videos have actually gotten more views from Twitter than YouTube. So if you want to do what YouTube won't and actually support this channel, it would really mean the world to me if you considered making monthly donations on Patreon. Not only will you help the channel keep going, you'll also get access to our Discord server and our semi-frequent horror movie nights. And speaking of patrons, I'd like to give a special thanks to Nichtschwert, Rocky Dennis, Tobias Mattsson, Håvard Krugerud, Professor Flowers, Vinders, Philip Kirschner, Oddshrew, Mackenzie Pollock, Eli Berg-Moss, and Rob Robbins. I also want to thank Pixel a Day for proofreading the script. Her links are in the description. I want to thank Emma Hagdahl for doing the makeup. And as usual, I want to thank you for watching the video.